My daughter called me in the middle of the night. "Dad, I'm at the police station. My stepfather beat me, but now he's telling them that I attacked him. They believe him." When I arrived at the station, the officer on duty turned pale and, stammering, said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Before we continue, don't forget to write in the comments which country you're from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. on a Thursday in late October, the kind of night when the air is sharp enough to cut glass and the moon hangs low like a warning. I was already half awake, the way parents learn to be when their children no longer live under the same roof, when every creak in the house could be a footstep or a heartbeat. The ringtone was Lily's favorite pop song, Sunflower Skies by Nova Ray, slowed to a haunting piano version she'd set years ago, back when she was 15 and convinced the world would end if her playlist wasn't perfect. My hand found the phone in the dark, thumb swiping before my eyes adjusted to the screen. The caller ID glowed. Lily Bear. "Dad," I whispered, voice trembling like a leaf caught in a storm, barely audible over what sounded like fluorescent lights buzzing in the background. "I'm at the police station. My stepfather beat me, but now he's telling them that I attacked him. They believe him." The words hit like ice water, poured straight into my veins, shocking every nerve awake. I was already pulling on jeans, one-handed, the phone pressed to my ear with my shoulder. "Stay calm, Lils. I'm coming. Don't say another word until I'm there. Not one. Do you hear me?" I tried to fight back, but he's bigger. And the officers, they looked at me like I was the problem. A sob broke through, raw and ragged. "There's blurred on my hoodie, Dad. My hoodie. Please hurry." The line went dead. I stared at the screen. 3:19 a.m. Then grabbed my keys, wallet, and the old leather jacket I hadn't worn since the academy, the one with the frayed cuffs and the faint scent of gun oil still trapped in the lining. My truck roared to life before I even closed the door. The drive to the Midtown precinct took 23 minutes on empty streets, though every red light felt like a personal insult, every shadow on the road a taunt. My mind raced faster than the engine. Robert. Of course it was Robert, Sarah's husband of 4 years, the man who'd swept in with smooth stories, expensive watches, and a laugh that never quite reached his eyes. He'd once told me straight-faced that Lily was going through a phase when she came home with a C in algebra. I'd wanted to believe Sarah when she said he was good for them, good for her. I'd wanted my daughter to have a stable home while I worked double shifts at the security firm, while I told myself retirement meant peace. What a fool I'd been. The station's fluorescent glow spilled onto the wet pavement like a crime scene in reverse, harsh and unforgiving. I parked crooked across 2 spaces. Didn't care. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, bleach, and something metallic underneath blood. Fear, or both. Sergeant Miller glanced up from the desk, recognized me, David, retired detective, badge 4729, still in the system, and waved me through without a word, her eyes flicking to the holding area with something like pity. Lily sat on a metal bench in the corner, knees drawn to her chest, one wrist cuffed to the rail with a plastic zip tie that had already cut red lines into her skin. A bruise the color of a ripe plum bloomed across her left cheekbone, spreading toward her temple like spilled ink. Her right eye was swelling shut, the lid puffed and shiny. Dried blood crusted above her eyebrow in a jagged line. She wore the same oversized hoodie she'd stolen from my closet last summer. Navy blue, property of Dad, faded across the chest, now torn at the sleeve, and stained dark at the collar. When she saw me, her face crumpled, and she tried to stand, but the cuff jerked her back. Across the room stood Robert Vance, 6'2", broad-shouldered, expensive haircut mussed just enough to look victimized, like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror. His lower lip was split, a thin line of blood dried at the corner, and a shallow scratch ran along his jaw. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, wearing the same half-smirk he'd flashed at our last family barbecue, when he jokingly told Lily to smile more because pretty girls don't scowl. He wore a tailored charcoal coat over a white shirt now spattered with what could have been her blood or his. Hard to tell under the lights. A young officer approached me, badge reading J. Carter, early 20s, baby-faced, Adam's apple bobbing like he'd swallowed a marble. His face drained of color the moment our eyes met, pale as printer paper. He fumbled with his clipboard, nearly dropping it, papers flittering like startled birds. "Mr. Anderson," he stammered, voice cracking on the second syllable. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Didn't know what? That I was her father? That I'd spent 22 years putting men like Robert behind bars? That I still had friends in every precinct from here to the county line? Friends who owed me favors older than this kid was? Carter led me past the desk toward a side office, his boots squeaking on the linoleum. Robert straightened, smirk faltering for half a second before snapping back into place. Lily lifted her head, eyes wide with something between hope and terror. Hope that I could fix this. Terror that I couldn't. Another officer, Ramirez, I recognized her from the academy, sharp eyes, no-nonsense braid, stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Robert like he was a suspect already, not a victim. "Cut the zip tie," I said, quietly, my voice flat enough to cut steel. Carter hesitated, glancing at his sergeant. "Sir, there's protocol. Now." Ramirez stepped forward, produced a small blade, and sliced the plastic in one motion. Lily rubbed her wrist, red welts circling the bone like a bracelet of fire, then ran to me. Her whole body shook, shoulders, hands, knees. I held her at arm's length, scanning every mark under the harsh lights. Finger-shaped bruises ringed her upper arms like someone had tried to crush her bones. A cut above her eyebrow had crusted over, but fresh blood still seeped at the edge. Her lip was split in 2 places. She smelled of fear, copper, and the faint vanilla body spray she'd worn since middle school. Robert cleared his throat, voice smooth as oil poured over broken glass. "She came at me with a kitchen knife, David. I was defending myself. Look at my face. Look at my arms. She scratched me deep enough to scar." Lily's voice cracked like thin ice. "He grabbed me by the hair, Dad, slammed my face into the marble counter 3 times. I never touched a knife. I was trying to get to the door." Carter's gaze darted between us, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning humming like a dying fridge. He pulled me aside into the narrow hallway that smelled of mildew and old paperwork, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Mr. Anderson, your daughter's phone recorded the entire incident. Audio only. She must have hit record when she dialed 911. We listened. It doesn't match Robert Vance's statement, not even close." Robert's face twitched, a muscle jumping in his jaw. "That could be edited. Kids these days, AI apps, deep fakes." Carter ignored him, eyes flicking to the one-way glass where Ramirez now stood guard. "There's more. The 911 call. Your stepdaughter made it at 11:47 p.m. She said clear as day, 'He's hurting me. Please hurry, he won't stop.' Then a crash, a scream, and the line went dead. We have the timestamp. Vance claimed she dialed by accident while attacking him, said she was hysterical." I looked at Robert. The smirk was gone, replaced with something colder. Calculation. The look of a man recalculating odds. Carter continued, voice barely above a whisper now, like he was afraid the walls were listening. "Mr. Anderson, when we ran background, Vance's priors popped up like weeds. 3 domestic complaints in 2 states, Ohio, Nevada. Sealed juvenile records, but still there if you know where to look. One involved a girlfriend who dropped charges after he apologized. And, sir, your name triggered a flag in the system. You're the detective who put his brother away 15 years ago. Armed robbery, gas and go on 5th and Mercer. Tommy Vance swore revenge in open court, said he'd make David Anderson pay for every year." The hallway tilted. I remembered the case like it was burned into my retinas. Tommy Vance, 22, wild-eyed, caught on grainy surveillance pistol-whipping a clerk for $43 and a pack of Marlboros. I'd testified for 3 hours, walked the jury through the tape, frame by frame. Tommy got 25 years. Robert had been 17 then, sitting in the gallery in a too-big suit, staring daggers through me. I'd forgotten his face until this moment, until it wore the same hatred aged into something polished and poisonous. Robert's eyes narrowed to slits. Coincidence? Ancient history. You can't prove... Carter wasn't done. He pulled out his tablet, swiped to a still image. We pulled the security cam from the apartment hallway. Building C, 3rd floor. Shows Vance dragging your daughter inside by the arm at 11:42 p.m. No knife in her hand. She's fighting, trying to pull away. Then the lights go out. Someone flipped the breaker. 43 seconds later, she stumbles out alone, bleeding. Hoodie half off one shoulder, calling 911 from the payphone downstairs. The super confirmed the payphone works. He tested it himself at 11:50 p.m. because he heard the sirens. Lily buried her face in my shoulder, her tears soaking through my shirt. I thought no one would believe me. Mom's on that business trip in Denver. He said he'd tell everyone I was crazy, just like he told her I was lying about the smaller stuff. The yelling, the shoving, the way he'd grab my wrist so hard it left marks under my long sleeves. He said if I told, he'd make sure I ended up in foster care. Robert took a step back, coat rustling. Ramirez moved to block the exit, hand resting on her holster with practiced ease. Carter turned to him, voice steady now, all traces of stammer gone. Robert Vance, you're under arrest for assault in the 2nd degree, filing a false report, witness intimidation, and destruction of evidence. Robert lunged, not at the officers, but at Lily, a guttural sound escaping his throat. I moved faster, 22 years of muscle memory kicking in. Shoulder checking him into the cinder block wall with a thud that echoed like a gunshot. His head snapped back, eyes rolling. Handcuffs snapped on before he could recover. Steel this time, not plastic. Ramirez read him his rights in a calm, clipped tone while he spat curses at the floor, at me, at the universe. As they led him away, he shouted over his shoulder, voice cracking with rage. "This isn't over, Anderson. You'll see. I'll bury you." Carter removed his hat, scratching his buzz-cut head, cheeks flushed with shame. "I owe you both an apology. I took the stepfather's story at face value. Pretty girl in a hoodie, rich stepdad with a split lip, history of teen rebellion. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I even wrote possible self-defense in the initial report. Won't happen again. I've already called the watch commander. We're opening an internal review and I'm volunteering for the training panel." Lily's fingers tightened around mine, nails digging crescents into my skin. "Can we go home?" "Not yet," I said, voice softer now. "Hospital first, photos, statements, the works. We do this right, Lils. Every bruise, every cut, we document it all." In the ER, the nurses moved with quiet efficiency under lights bright enough to sterilize souls. They documented every injury in high definition. The cheekbone bruise spreading like a storm cloud, the split lip with a flap of skin hanging loose, the fingerprint welts on her arms in perfect ovals, the older, yellow-green marks on her ribs that made the nurse's jaw tighten into a hard line. A social worker, named Marisol, mid-40s, kind eyes, clipboard like a shield, took Lily's full account behind a curtain, while I stood outside, fists clenched so hard my knuckles cracked like ice on a pond. When they finished, the doctor, a woman with steel gray hair and a voice like warm tea, pulled me aside in the corridor that smelled of antiseptic and despair. "Old fractures," she said quietly, glancing at the chart. "Healed wrist from approximately 6 months ago? Hairline crack in 2 ribs? 3 months, maybe 4? This wasn't the first time. We're required to report suspected ongoing abuse to CPS and the DA. She'll need follow-up with a trauma specialist." Rage boiled, hot and black. But I swallowed it like bitter medicine. Lily needed me steady, not reckless. Not the cop who'd once kicked in a door without a warrant.
not the father who wanted to hunt Robert down in lockup. Back at my house, 2-story brick on Maple Lane, quiet street, the one that Sarah had left when we divorced 8 years ago, we sat on the porch swing that creaked like an old friend. Dawn painted the sky lavender and peach, the first light catching on the frost that glittered on the grass. Lily sipped hot chocolate from her old dinosaur mug, the green one with the cracked handle, blanket around her shoulders like a cape. The bruise on her cheek looked worse in daylight, purple bleeding into blue. "I should have told you sooner," she whispered, steam curling from the mug. "About the yelling, the way he'd corner me in the kitchen when Mom was in the shower, how he'd say, 'Your mom works hard. Don't stress her with your drama.' I thought I just had to stay quiet until college, until I turned 18 in 2 years. I put an arm around her, careful of the bruises. 'You're safe now. That's what matters. And you're never going back there. Not ever.'" My phone buzzed on the railing. A text from Sarah. "Just landed in Den. Connecting flight delayed 3 hours. What's going on? Robert's not answering. Lily's phone goes to voicemail. I'm worried." Then another, 30 seconds later. "Call me. Now." I showed Lily. She bit her lip, wincing when it split open again. A bead of blood welling up. "Mom's going to freak. She thinks I'm overreacting. She always says I'm sensitive. Let her freak. She needs to know who she married. And you're not sensitive. You're surviving." Sarah arrived at noon, eyes puffy from crying on the plane, hair in a messy bun she hadn't worn since our college days when we'd stay up all night studying for finals. She dropped her suitcase in the driveway, wheels still spinning, and ran to Lily, hugging her so hard I thought the ribs the doctor warned about might crack again. Lily stiffened at first, arms hanging limp, then melted, face crumpling into her mom's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, baby," she kept saying, voice muffled in Lily's hair. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen. I should have listened." Robert's bail hearing was set for Monday. The DA, Monica Alvarez, a woman I'd worked with years ago on a string of home invasions, was pushing no bond, citing flight risk, the revenge angle, and the mountain of evidence. Sarah sat at my kitchen table, same oak table where Lily had done homework since she was 6, twisting a tissue into knots until it shredded. "He said Lily was imagining things," she said, voice breaking like glass underfoot. "That she was jealous of our marriage, that she'd been acting out, skipping class, sneaking out with friends I'd never met. I defended him. I thought I was protecting our family." She looked at Lily, eyes swimming. "How did I miss this? How did I let him convince you were the problem?" Lily reached across, touching her mom's hand with fingers still swollen. "You didn't miss it. He hid it from both of us. He'd wait until you were in the shower or on a work call or asleep. He'd smile for you. Then—" She trailed off, shrugging, the motions small and painful. "He'd say things like, 'Your dad left because you're too much.' I started believing him." Sarah sobbed then, a sound that tore through the room like a blade. I got her water, set it down untouched. Lily patted her back with the awkward tenderness of a child comforting a parent. Over the next weeks, the case unraveled Robert completely, thread by thread, until he was naked before the law. Neighbors came forward. One, Mrs. Delgado from 3B, remembered hearing screams and a thud that shook her ceiling, thought it was the TV until she saw Lily limping to the bus stop the next morning, hoodie pulled low. Another, a college kid from 2A, had footage on his Ring camera of Robert carrying a black toolbox at 12:03 a.m., glancing around like he knew where the blind spots were. The building's super, Mr. Patel, found the missing kitchen knife in that same toolbox, hidden behind paint cans, wiped clean, but with Lily's blood in the groove. Lab confirmed DNA match within hours. The building's laundry room camera caught Robert disposing of Lily's torn hoodie sleeve in the dumpster at 12:17 p.m., the sleeve with her blood, and his skin cells under the fingernails she'd scratched him with in self-defense. The hoodie itself was recovered, bagged, tagged, sent to evidence. Tommy Vance, Robert's brother, even sent a letter from prison, forwarded by the DA, postmarked from Ironwood State. "Tell David Anderson I'm sorry. Little brother always had a temper. Thought he'd grown out of it after juvie. Didn't know he'd go after a kid. If I'd been out, I'd have stopped him myself. Tell the girl she's stronger than both of us.
Robert took a plea. 7 years, no parole for 5, plus a permanent restraining order that covered Lily, Sarah, and me by extension. Sarah filed for divorce the same week, served him in county lockup through a deputy who knew me from the old days. She moved into the spare bedroom down the hall from Lily, said she couldn't go back to that apartment, even if it was exorcised by a dozen priests. Lily moved in with me permanently. We turned the guest room into her space over a long weekend, string lights draped like constellations across the ceiling, a desk by the window overlooking the maple tree that dropped helicopter seeds every spring, posters of bands she loved taped crookedly because she insisted on doing it herself. She painted the walls a soft sage green, the color of new leaves, and hung a corkboard where she pinned debate trophies, college brochures, and a printout of the Anderson Protocol training flyer. Some nights she woke screaming, thrashing against nightmares where Robert's hands were around her throat. I'd sit on the floor beside her bed, back against the wall, until her breathing evened out and the string lights painted soft galaxies on her face. We developed a system. 3 knocks on the wall if she needed me, no questions asked. I'd knock back twice. I'm here. One evening, 4 months after the arrest, we were eating pizza on the living room floor, boxes open like a picnic on the worn Persian rug Sarah had left behind. Grease stained the carpet. Neither of us cared. Lily scrolled through her phone, then looked up, eyes bright despite the faint scar that now bisected her eyebrow. Dad, remember Officer Carter? He messaged me on the precinct's community page. Said because of what happened, the department's starting mandatory training on domestic calls citywide. They're using our case anonymous, but still, they're calling it the Anderson Protocol. It covers audio evidence, hallway cams, old fractures, everything. I raised an eyebrow, chewing pepperoni. Kid, you just changed policy for 4,000 officers. She smiled, the first real one in forever, the kind that reached her eyes and crinkled the corners. We changed it. You believed me first. Sarah appeared in the doorway holding a bowl of popcorn seasoned with the truffle salt she'd discovered on a work trip. Movie night! I vote for that one with the talking raccoon. Lily groaned, dramatic. Mom, we've seen it 12 times. 13th the charm, and I brought extra cheese. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall. Soft, quiet, covering the world in clean white. Lily opened the window a crack, letting cold air kiss our faces. Snowflakes melted on her eyelashes like tiny stars. Think we'll be okay? She asked, voice small but steady, the question she'd asked 100 times since that night. I pulled her close, Sarah piling in on the other side until we were a tangled heap of blankets and limbs and laughter. Better than okay. We're unbreakable now. And for the first time in years, I believed it. But stories like ours don't end tidy. They stretch, fray, reweave themselves into something stronger. 6 months later, Lily started therapy twice a week with Dr. Singh, a trauma specialist who wore bright scarves and never rushed her. She'd come home quiet some days, sketching in a leather-bound notebook she wouldn't let me see. Other days, she'd bound through the door announcing she'd aced a physics test or that the school newspaper wanted her to write an op-ed on teen advocacy. She joined the debate team, wore her bruises like badges until they faded, then wore her voice like armor. Her first tournament, she took second place arguing for mandatory mental health days in schools. The trophy sits on her desk, catching the string lights. Sarah sold the apartment, used the money to pay for Lily's college fund and a down payment on a little house 2 streets over. Yellow siding, wraparound porch, a kitchen big enough for Sunday pancakes. She and I learned to co-parent without the old bitterness. Scheduled dinners, shared Google calendars, the works. Some nights she'd stay for coffee after dropping Lily off, and we'd talk about everything except Robert, her new job at the marketing firm, my security consulting gigs, the way Lily's laugh had returned, louder than before. Carter, the young officer, showed up at our door one Saturday with a box of donuts and a sheepish grin that hadn't changed. Training's rolling out citywide, he said. shifting from foot to foot. Wanted to say thanks in person. And my sister is in a bad situation. Your daughter gave me the courage to help her leave. She's safe now.
Lily hugged him so hard his hat fell off, rolling across the porch like a tumbleweed. Sarah took a photo. Carter red-faced, Lily grinning, me pretending to scold them for making a mess. A year after the arrest, Lily turned 18. We threw a party in the backyard. String lights woven through the maple branches, mismatched lawn chairs, a playlist she curated herself with songs that made Sarah groan and me pretend to hate. Half the debate team showed up, plus Sarah's co-workers, even Ramirez from the precinct, wearing jeans instead of her uniform. Carter brought his sister, Marissa, who clung to Lily like a lifeline, whispering, "Thanks for the crisis hotline number." Lily had texted her at 2 a.m. one night. At dusk, Lily pulled me aside to the maple tree, its leaves just starting to turn. She held a small wooden box, sanded smooth. "Open it." Inside was a keychain, a tiny silver badge engraved with Anderson Protocol in tiny script on the back. "For the ones who believe us." She had made it, eyes shining. For you, for every kid who's scared to speak, for every officer who learns to listen. I clipped it to my keys that night. It's still there, clinking against the truck key every morning. Robert tried to appeal his sentence 6 months in, claiming new evidence, a witness who said Lily had a history of violence. The appeal died in committee. Too much documentation, too many witnesses, too many cameras. The witness turned out to be a cellmate, promised commissary money. Last I heard, Robert was in protective custody after picking a fight with the wrong inmate over the TV remote. Tommy Vance wrote again, "Karma's slow but sure. Tell the kid she's a warrior." Lily graduated high school, top of the class, gave a speech about believing survivors that made the local news and went viral on the school district's Facebook page. Colleges sent acceptance letters thick as phone books. Stanford, NYU, the State University. She chose State. Close enough to come home weekends, far enough to breathe on her own. Her essay, "The Night I Learned My Voice Was Evidence." The night before she left for freshman orientation, we sat on the porch swing again, fireflies blinking in the yard like tiny lanterns. She wore the hoodie she'd stolen from me, now patched at the elbows with constellation fabric she'd sewn herself. "Dad," she said, tracing the scar on her eyebrow, "remember when you told me stories about your first beat, how you thought you could fix everything with a badge and a flashlight?" I nodded, throat tight. I used to think justice was a gavel banging in a courtroom. Now I think it's louder. It's showing up at 3 a.m. It's listening when a kid says, "He hurt me," instead of, "She's dramatic." It's choosing to believe the girl with the bruise instead of the man with the smile. I swallowed hard. "You planning to fix the world, Lils?" She grinned, the same grin from when she was 6 and convinced she could catch fireflies in her pockets. "Starting with one dorm room at a time, then maybe law school, then maybe the DA's office. Monica Alvarez said she'd write a recommendation." Move-in day was chaos. Boxes stacked like Jenga, nervous parents wiping tears, RAs with clipboards and forced smiles. Sarah and I carried the mini fridge up 3 flights, while Lily directed traffic like a general, ponytail swinging. When the last poster was hung, a print of Van Gogh's Starry Night above her desk, she hugged us both, fierce and quick. "I'll call every night," she promised. "You better," Sarah said, voice cracking. "Only if there's drama," I added, trying for levity. She rolled her eyes. "Dad?" That night, my house felt too quiet, the string lights in her room still glowing through the open door. I sat in her desk chair, spinning slowly, and found the notebook she'd hidden under the mattress. Leather-bound pages, thick with sketches, her bruises fading panel by panel, then transforming into wings, then into constellations, then into a girl standing on a porch swing with a keychain raised like a torch. On the last page, a single line in her neat, looping handwriting. "We don't break. We orbit and we light the way." I closed the book, left it on her desk for when she came home, taped a Post-it to the cover, Proud doesn't cover it. 2 years later, Lily interned at the DA's office under Monica Alvarez. She helped draft a bill expanding victim advocacy in schools, mandatory reporting training, anonymous tip lines, counselors in every middle school. It passed committee 9-2. She stood in the gallery when it was signed, wearing the same hoodie, now faded to soft gray. Carter, now Detective Carter, testified in support, wearing the same sheepish grin, badge polished to a shine. Sarah started a support group for parents who'd missed the signs, Second Sight Parents. 23 families the first year, 50 the next. They meet in the church basement on Tuesdays. No judgment, just coffee and truth. And me, I kept the keychain. Kept showing up at Lily's debates, at Sarah's open houses, at the precinct when Carter needed a guest lecturer on reading the room in domestic calls. I started a mentorship program for retired cops, pairing them with kids in the juvenile system who reminded us of who we used to be. Some nights, I still hear that 3:17 a.m. ringtone in my dreams. Sunflower skies, slowed to piano, Lily's voice cracking on, "Dad?" But now when I wake, I know the story doesn't end in a police station with fluorescent lights and zip ties. It ends, or begins really, on a porch swing under string lights with a girl who learned to speak her truth into a microphone that carried it across a city. A mother who learned to listen until her heart broke open, and a father who learned that justice isn't always a badge or a gavel. Sometimes it's a keychain engraved with a promise. Sometimes it's a story told so many times it becomes a law. Sometimes it's just showing up again and again at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. until the world believes you, until every kid with a bruise knows they're not the problem, until every officer hesitates before believing the man with the smile, until every parent looks closer, until the cycle breaks and the light gets in. And on the nights when the snow falls soft and quiet, I sit on that porch swing alone, keychain in my palm, and I know Lily's out there, orbiting, shining, pulling others into her gravity. Unbreakable, believed.